What's going on, everyone? John Hendricks here for Saints News Network, coming at you with another breakdown of Saints training camp. Day 7 is in the books. It was moved indoors, Wednesday's practice. Got to see some of the a small select fans, kind of the VIPs. They were able to come in a little bit later in the indoor session, observe practice. We'll break down some of the greatest stuff that happened from Wednesday. But before we do that, obviously we want to give a shout out to Justin Burgess over at BenPro for sponsoring today's show. Again, if you have a business that's located in the greater New Orleans region, you need some help with employee benefits or any type of insurance needs, give this guy a call, 504-888-8038. He will get you hooked up, free quote, all those types of things. Check him out. He's helped a lot of places locally. He's helping not just the small businesses, but medium-sized businesses. If you have a business need, go check him out. Tell him John Hendricks sent you. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about attendance. Let's get into it. We're going to go to the notebook and make sure we hit on some of these main points that I want to hit on today. So as far as attendance goes, let's start with who wasn't there. You didn't have Bradley Roby. You didn't have Jimmy Graham. You didn't have Ryan Ramczyk. And then obviously you didn't have Alvin Kamara because he was in New York today dealing with some of the things for Roger Goodell. The Saints are expecting a suspension. That is not new news. I've seen it out there, people treating it as new news. We've been talking about this since probably February, honestly, since this thing happened, that the Saints have expected him to get suspended at some point. The question is, how many games is it? That's really the concern here, right? And so if you see this thing, it's not new news. I know people want to aggregate and do all this stuff and treat it as new news. It is not new news. The Saints have been aware. They do expect some type of suspension for Alvin Kamara. So we'll see how that all plays out. But he wasn't there today. Andres Pete, he's been hurt. And then, we touched on Graham. So a couple players missing. We also didn't see Scott Lashley, but we did find out after practice that he was waived injured, and the team signed Tommy Kramer in his place. Offensive lineman, number 62 is what he's wearing right now. So, as far as attendance, some of these guys, obviously the 3 guys, getting some veteran rest days. That's the big thing. Roby, Graham, and obviously Ramczyk. So no cause for concern there. The team is off on Thursday. They'll be back on Friday. We'll see fans. Team did make some adjustments as far as, the open portion of what's going to be able to be seen by fans in attendance just because of the extreme heat that we've been feeling. So thank you to DA and all those people that were responsible for shifting practice indoors. Welcome change up. And, when it goes indoors, it's a little bit different of an atmosphere. Obviously when you're outside, 2 practice fields, then you're condensed to 1, but it is a pretty large facility, so we got to see some stuff. Now, as far as other things that happened, as far as attendance goes, and we'll break down some of the big things and takeaways from today. 3 players did leave practice today. Andrew Dowell left practice. He was making a tackle near the sideline, came up very hobbled, limping. He was able to sit on the sidelines for a little bit. Then he walked over and walked out of practice. Dennis Allen made it a point to come check on him. He said afterwards it's a knee issue. Knee injury. We'll see. We don't know the severity of it. Then you had Calvin Throckmorton also exit with an elbow injury. And then you had Alontae Taylor. Obviously, he also came out with some hamstring tightness. So, again, this is stuff that happens throughout the course of practices. We'll see about Throckmorton. That's a little bit concerning because the team's already lost Trey Turner. Andres Pete's not out there. Throckmorton's a guy who started a lot of games for you. He's somebody that can fill in at a pinch. He's played at left guard and right guard. You can move him all around. And if he's not in the equation right now, you're kind of running a little bit thin, right, as far as the guard position. Now, they have been using guys like Landon Young and kicking him inside and getting him some little bit work in addition to left tackle and right tackle. But, again, a little bit concerning. You still have Nick Saldiveri out there. Lewis Kidd, again, made some big waves as an undrafted free agent, and he's out there as well. So, but, again, it's getting a little thin. It's getting a little concerning. This is not a good problem to have, but we'll wait and see what happens. If he's not there on Friday, we'll be a little bit more concerned, and then we'll just kind of see how things progress. But as far as today, interesting flow. I'd say overall the defense had a very strong day. I would tell you that the offense had their fair share of issues. There was a lot of slipping going on, one-on-ones, team drills, guys slipping on their routes and such. Don't know if it was just a coincidence. Maybe it's the shoes, whatever the case may be. Some slippage there. There were some drops today. There was also some tempo, a couple of plays where the tempo just wasn't there. false starts, have to go back to the huddle, all those types of things, but still got a lot of pretty good action. I would give the edge to the defense today. I think they showed up and showed out a little bit more today. You got an interception, in practice from Troy Pride. That was a big moment for him, and then you had some other moments in 7-on-7 that looked really good. One-on-ones today. Look, one-on-ones, just so everybody knows, and if you haven't seen the detailed charting from Saints News Network, I put every single rep in there, every single route. Was it complete, incomplete, the type of route, who was throwing it, all the stuff you need to know. Go to Saints.media. All your recap will be there if you want to read up, and I encourage you to read up for it because it's almost 2,400 words on a crazy day where people probably think not much was happening, right? And so a lot of good notes there. I would just tell you just from it some things I would say. Really, I think one of the plays of the day was a post route that Winston hit with James Washington with Isaac Yiadom in coverage. Just really good. It was a little bit underthrown, and I thought Yiadom would have actually picked this one off, but Washington's there to kind of catch it with his hands and just kind of walk back to the end zone. It was a pretty big moment. So, I thought that was a really good one there. Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, these are veterans on the roster that look really solid. Of course, Traquan is a guy that dealt with injuries. Derek Carr had some really good things to say about him. I mean, this is a guy that kind of does all the dirty work and then some, but he's looked pretty good, the past couple of days. And so has Keith Kirkwood. He's a guy that not many are going to talk about. A.T. Perry was a person that was slipping a good bit. He come back. I guess that's the biggest thing I appreciate about Perry is that he won't have the most consistent practices so far. He's a quiet guy. He does a lot of work, but he does come back from it, right? And so if he starts sluggish, he makes some plays that end up being really good. So one-on-ones, check out all the detail there. And another thing I have on this is, the backfield routes from Kendre Miller. Look, he looks a lot more confident. He's learning from Alvin Kamara taking him under his wing. He looks a lot more polished there. Looks a little bit comfortable with protection, blitz pickups, those types of things. And, of course, day 7 of training camp, pads just came on Monday, right? So this is kind of what we're loosely basing things on. First preseason game is right around the corner with the Chiefs. That's going to be super important to watch for a lot of these players. As far as unsung heroes on the day, Anthony Johnson, Troy Pride, these are two guys that are kind of rising a little bit based off of some plays that have been made today and just in practice in general. We did have another interception to talk about in team. Mentioned that was Troy Pride. Wasn't a great throw by Jameis Winston. Pride's right there. He's working against A.T. Perry. He's in a great position to get the pick. So those things tend to happen, unfortunately. So we'll see kind of how players bounce back. And, one of the things too, because I know we say picks in practice, offense doesn't look good. Is that really a bad sign? I would lean more towards not necessarily, because something Derek Carr hit on today is it's not, don't get wrapped up in the fact that he might go 3 for 6 or something like that, because the practice field is where he's trying to get things perfected, right? And so he's willing to try things a little bit more, something that he said after practice, be able to do those types of things in practice to try to make it work on game days and such. And so, look, that's where he's going to take more chances. Obviously, some of the routes and concepts have just not been there as far as timing goes. They'll come, it'll happen, but you've seen it with Chris Olave, you've seen it with Michael Thomas. And so those types of things are going to happen throughout training camp. It's just not a perfect product. New quarterback, different language, different verbiage. He is confident in what he's doing. Mike's coming back, all that and such. And so, this is kind of to be expected, but, I think overall it's been a pretty good transition for him. And I think we're just waiting for that big Michael Thomas moment where he makes this great catch and everybody's like, Mike is back. And they've tried. They're feeding him in camp, whether it's in team drills or one-on-one, 7-on-7. They're trying to get him the ball. He's catching some slant routes, but they're trying to hit some of those deep, routes or some things that are in that intermediate to deep passing range area, and it just hasn't completely worked yet. It'll come. But I don't have any doubts about Michael Thomas. We've talked about guys like Jake Haener already. We've talked about a lot of those players and just kind of the work they've been putting in. Look, I've said it. I've noticed it. I've talked about it. But Payton Turner is a guy who's continually making plays. He's getting run stops. He's getting quarterback pressures. Look, I get it. Caution, right? Always be cautiously optimistic there. I love what I've seen from him in practices, and I don't want to blow this out of proportion because here's the thing. So what have you done for me lately, and what are you going to do on Sunday? Because you can look great in practice. I said this the other day. You can look great in practice, but you look like crap in the game. You can look like crap in practice, and then you can look great in the game. I mean, that's just kind of what we've seen with these camp champs over the years, Emmanuel Butlers, those types of players that just look really good in practices, don't show up in preseason. I'm not saying that with Payton Turner, but I am encouraged with where this defensive line is right now. A lot of new faces, a lot of turnover, but Payton Turner is one of those guys who's been with the program, been in it since day one. I think that's a real reason why he's having some of the success right now. And again, there's not a lot of pressure because Dennis Allen even said he's not looking at this end result for him, just looking for development, right? And I think that's the biggest thing and encouragement for taking away from him. But, look, again, I think that you've seen practices and you put pen to paper on all these observations that you have. Look, yesterday was tight end Tuesday. Not as good today, but you had some stuff and moments where Juwan Johnson shows up. Zach Bond getting a couple pass breakups. Guy that seems to be struggling a little bit right now and such, and I don't want to single him out, but Brian Edwards didn't have the greatest reps in one-on-one and just hasn't really found his groove. I don't know if it's completely comfortability or what it is yet, but hopefully that thing turns on because again, you look at 4, 5, and 6 on the wide receiver depth chart right now. And if I was to put it together right now, I tell you, it's got to go to Traquan. It's got to go to Keith Kirkwood. And that 6th spot, if they keep a 6th guy, I don't know who that guy is. I don't think anybody has said definitely it's going to be them because I think James Washington can do things. I think A.T. Perry can do things. I think Brian Edwards can do things as a possession-style receiver. They're just clear vision. Guys like Shaq Davis, Kawan Baker, a little bit further down the depth chart, and look, hopefully they get a chance to prove themselves in the preseason. But this wide receiver group, it's going to be tough when it comes to 53-man roster. And right now, kind of something DA had talked about, just going with the incumbent in a way. Not necessarily where you would go, but Traquan does those dirty work and all that, and I would think that he would get the spot right now if the roster was assembled. And the same thing with Keith Kirkwood. But we'll see how that all plays out. Again, main takeaways: Kamara's over in New York City meeting with Roger Goodell. Absences that we had, veteran rest days, the injuries that happened today. We'll keep eyes on Andrew Dow, Alontae Taylor. That shouldn't be something serious. And then Calvin Throckmorton to keep an eye on those guys. And then just see how things unfold. Again, Thursday's a day off. We'll see how things come together on Friday. If you're in practices or you're going to attend practices Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just remember they are scaling things back. Gates, I believe, open at 9:15 in the morning. Practices, when as far as they come outside, they're going to start inside and then go outside. So inside practice for a while, we'll see all that, see some drills. And then probably towards team, they'll start coming out at 10 o'clock and only be out on the field for about an hour. So a little bit of a transition. It's all dealt with the heat. And so just stay tuned. We're going to have plenty more coverage. If you haven't checked out Saints.media to see all the camp recaps and breakdowns and notes and observations I have, tons more that I didn't get in on here because, again, more of a recap. But be sure to check that out. And also, I'm thrilled to announce to everybody more coming. But in addition to Justin Burgess sponsoring the show, become an influencer for SeatGeek. And so if you know about SeatGeek, it's a great way to get tickets to your favorite sporting events. Be sure to use the code HENDRIX. That's HENDRIX, just like Jimmy, not like the gin. The right way to spell it, in my opinion. I'm a little bit biased, to get $20 off your first order with SeatGeek. Happy to have them on board. Big things happening this year. Looking forward to it all. Again, thank you for tuning in. So much appreciation for your support. Plenty more coming. This is going to be a killer season, and I can't wait to bring it to you. John Hendricks signing out for Saints News Network. Thanks, guys.